Overtime with Joe Parker provides a comprehensive look into high school sports in North Atlanta. Tune in each week for prep sports headlines and in-depth discussions with local players and coaches.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Overtime with Joe Parker. I am resident host and sports reporter here with App and Media Group, and I'm joined today by our special guest to talk some Johns Creek football, and that, of course, is head coach Matt Helmerich. Coach, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It's always an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I especially want to thank you because I imagine this is a very busy time of year right now, or perhaps in your life. Congratulations on the birth of Hunter.
Thank you. He's a handful.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, absolutely.
First child and kind of learning on the go here. So 10 pounds, 7 ounces at birth. So always hungry.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Well, admittedly, as a guy without kids, we'll get to football since that's something I actually know a little bit about. And I want to start off with Coach, kind of at the beginning, the outset of this season. This was year 2 for you at the helm. You had a pretty young squad last year. They, of course, were transitioning in 2017 kind of under the you and the current coaching staff at Johns Creek. So heading into this year, what was kind of, your outlook for the 2018 season given that?
Well, like we've talked about it, you and I, before, and in a couple other interviews of just how young we actually were in 2017. And, we had... we talk about as a staff, we basically had a JV team playing on Friday nights. And, we started 2 or 3 freshmen that were getting significant time on Friday nights, tons of sophomores and juniors playing. We had 4 seniors in 2017 that actually, were contributors. So the rest were all underclassmen. So as tough as it was in 2017, and we took our lumps and kind of felt the growing pains throughout the year, we knew we had a pretty good squad coming back and a team that got some good reps throughout the year. JV team competed in 2017 and won some games. And of course, all those guys, a lot of those guys got varsity experience. So we were excited coming in 2018 to see if these guys could really kind of take that next step and not only just kind of show that we've been there before as far as reps and Friday nights and all that stuff, but actually win some games. So, and we were able to do that. So
one of those guys returning for you this season was your quarterback in Zach Gibson, who, to have I believe he was at one point, kind of a 4-year starter for Johns Creek. How vital was that, having a guy leading the offense that had just so much experience at the varsity level?
Yeah, that was just, a blessing. That's the only other word I can think of. A kid that's been, he's a Johns Creek kid, through and through, and, took the starting job halfway through his freshman year and just kind of been in control. Unfortunately for him, he was, on 3 different coordinators in 4 years. But he's so darn football smart and football savvy that he picked up the offense and just him in control and just being a great football mind, a good leader, lining kids upright, calling the offensive line protections, just doing all the things that a quarterback needs to do, which are more than I ever had to do as a linebacker or center or whatever I played back in the day. But he's just phenomenal and. And I told him this too, and as we kind of said our goodbyes, he's one of the main reasons I took the job in the first place. Just kind of looking over a roster when you take a job, and it's nice to see a quarterback that was a 2-year starter, and he's only a sophomore. So I knew I'd have two good solid years with him, and he's what made us tick. He's what made us go. When he was playing well, I thought there were not too many teams in the state that could beat us. Gibson
obviously had a lot of receivers, talented receivers that he could go to, guys like Giovanni Dyer, Youngman Lee, Dalton Pearson, Matt Casey. You talk a little bit about the receiving core this season for the Gladiators?
Yeah, I definitely think it was one of our strengths. Was the speed. We didn't have that big 6'2", 6'3" receiver. I think Dalton was the biggest receiver at 5'10". But Matt Casey led us in receptions the year before. Youngmin Lee is a kid that we just try to get the ball in his hands because he's so electric and catches everything, and he's a little water bug out there. Giovanni Dyer's a kid that runs a 4.3 in the 40, so we could just get him the ball in space and turn him loose. And Dalton Pearson, who's got some baseball scholarships as of late, he might be the most athletic kid on our team. So I think as Zach matured and got more comfortable with the offense, and this is probably any quarterback, instead of getting 50 yards on a 50-yard pass, a bomb down the field, he could throw a 8-yard slant, a 5-yard stop route, and those guys can make one guy miss, and then now they're off the races, and there's your 50 yards. So I think Zach did a great job of kind of taking what the defenses gave him, and he did a good job of getting those kids are playmakers, and he got them the ball.
Johns Creek definitely wasn't, from my perspective, or I think anybody's, one-dimensional. It was just all pass. You guys also had a lot of rushing success. Nate Hope kind of leading that charge, and how would you kind of rate Hope throughout the season, and also the offensive lineman leading the way for his rushing attack?
Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest reasons for our success in 2018 was our offense line was just light years better than it was in 2017, and for the most part it was the same kids. Got a little bit stronger in the weight room and came together and just fought their butts off every game. There's some undersized kids and they took pride in blocking for Nate and keeping Zach upright. And back to Nate, it's unfortunate for him. He did have kind of a foot injury, ankle injury that we not many people knew about, but we did limit his reps in practice and in games for a good 5 or 6 games in the middle of the season. And I was talking to him today, and he's still recovering from that foot injury. He's still not 100%. So unfortunately for him, he was after week 2 or 3, he wasn't 100% the rest of the year. But for a kid that squats 510 pounds and can run like him and catch like him, even him at 80-85% is pretty darn good back, and that's why he's going to Dartmouth. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling he'll play there right away. He's pretty darn good. Mm-hmm. So Will Watson was a guy who came in, kind of a scat back kid that's 5'6" and got a low center of gravity, also strong and wiry, and he was a good change of pace guy to Nate. So it was important for us not just to have Zach in the passing game, and we didn't want to get into it where we're chucking the ball 50 times a game. So it was good to keep offenses or keep defenses off balance, be able to run or pass most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Now, defensively, you had a lot of talent as well. For instance, up front, you guys, Aaron Hamilton, Miles Younger, really strong core behind them with John Ross May, Trayvon Barnett, Neil Helmerich. Every time it trips me
That's
up.
okay. I had to tell 3 college coaches today how to say it. So.
Yeah, okay. Right, well, with that, definitely had talent, as we said, defensively. Looking back on this season, how would you kind of rate the defense's performance overall?
Pretty good. Obviously, not where I'd like it to be, just because I'm selfish and greedy and want to shut everybody out. So every touchdown made me kind of cringe a little bit. But they came a long way in the off season and really learned to fly to the ball. And I think the biggest compliment I got was a couple coaches from other staffs and a couple buddies I've worked with before that shoot me a text or something, said they saw some highlights of us and just raved about how our kids get to the ball. Mm-hmm. They said you guys are flying to the ball. And I think that's, besides the physicality of it, I think that's probably the best compliment that we could get. And, we didn't have a lot of size. And truth be told, Aaron Hamilton, who's going to Eastern Michigan, tweaked his knee week 1 and missed a couple games. And he came back and played 80% of the time on the offensive side of the ball. We limited his reps on D, just based on his lack of movement, number one, and kind of trying to keep him fresh. We really needed him on offense. So we had some undersized kids on there, but everybody on that defense can run. And for the most part, they all played the year before and got some valuable experience in 2017. And We do a lot of stuff, and I was pleasantly surprised at how well the kids picked it up. We do a ton of blitzes. If there's a coverage out there, we run it. If there's a blitz out there, we try to run it. And we threw a lot at the kids, and they picked it up. Weren't always perfect, and I think another year running the same D, we got a lot of good juniors coming back, and a lot of second string type of kids that got a lot of good reps this year. So if we had to play tomorrow, I'd say our defense would be the strength of our team. We are losing kids like Trayvon Barnett and Neil Lindry and Miles Younger, who was a region defensive player of the year, who just played so dang hard and gets off the ball and uses his hands about as well as anybody I've ever coached. So those guys will be missed. But like I said, we got a pretty good young core that's coming back on defense.
Sticking with that kind of the beginning of the season, you have two out-of-state opponents to start off this year. I remember, kind of before we even got into the season, you said maybe bit off a little bit more than you could chew with Fairfield Central and St. John's Prep. But, what was kind of the thought process going into that to face some teams that Johns Creek had never played before?
Right. Well, the Fairfield Central thing was kind of we were forced into that one. We just had a scheduling issue with the team we had scheduled to play, and had a contract gaff, I guess you could say, and end up searching for a team late in the process, and I found them. Everybody in Georgia had already had their schedule locked in, so I found that Fairfield Central needed a game, and they're only a couple hours away, and they agreed to do a home and home, so we'll go there next year. But being in such a big region, 9-team region, you only have to have 2 out of region games, which is it's good because you don't have to worry about scheduling a bunch of teams. But I really wanted to do an out-of-state game every year, whether it's somebody coming to us or us going to them. And like you said, we definitely bit off more than we can chew, but that was kind of on purpose. We'd had another team scheduled, and they kind of backed out last second, and St. John's called me and asked if I wanted to play them. Immediately agreed to it, and the dates worked out, and they were helping us out financially getting out there. So, and I figured Washington, D.C. would be a great place to go. And then I started watching film, and I was like, these guys are pretty good. And then they end up bringing in a quarterback from Hawaii. They got a D tackle that's got an Alabama offer. That was a rising junior coming in from Connecticut. So they bring in kids from all over the place. And, I really believe that, not to throw our kids under the bus, but I really believe we thought we could compete with them. And until they walked out on the field. And, being in Florida at St. Thomas, we played some pretty good teams around America, and Prattville and De La Salle and Bosco out of New Jersey. But St. John's was definitely the best looking team I've ever seen in my life, as far as a high school team taking the field. I mean, there was they didn't have a linebacker DB that was smaller than our offensive line. So, I mean, they were huge. They could run. Now, having said that, we competed. I know the score doesn't reflect it, but our offense moved the ball. At least we moved the ball in the first half. We moved the ball, we just couldn't get in the end zone. And then I think they had about 5 drives over 12 plays. So it's not like they just threw it up and just ran over us left and right. So we made them work for touchdowns, and like I said, we moved the ball a little bit on offense. We just couldn't get in the end zone. And it was just such a great experience going out there. Team kind of came together, spent a lot of time on the bus and in the hotel rooms and meetings, and then, toured the sites, doing things like visiting the Arlington Cemetery and having our kids participate in the wreath laying ceremony. I mean, that's something that those kids will never forget, and I'll never forget. I never knew too much about it until we experienced it, and getting team pictures in front of the Lincoln Memorial and our nation's capital after a tour. I mean, not too many high school teams across the country can say they did that, and scoreboard didn't turn out in our favor, but the trip was just endless positives came from that trip.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You kind of touched on my next question, which was, obviously each team has kind of the unifying a family ideal or something along those lines? Was that an important trip to kind of create the bonds for your team?
It was, and it was funny because Mary Byrne, our football director of operations, her and I worked on the rooming list, and kids got to suggest who they wanted to room with, and some of them we let them pick maybe one person, but then they're paired up with another group that they probably had no conversation with that group. We have two pairs in each room, so. They were mad at me on the way over because they didn't get the room with so and so. But by the end of the trip, it was really cool to see kids that had never spoken before. Sophomores from one group that are talking to seniors from another group, and it was pretty cool to see that those kids were getting along, laughing with each other, and like I said, the benefits of that really showed up later in the season when instead of it's a long season, and sometimes you get into it where it's like a family, and you get tired of each other, annoyed with each other, and you're about ready to kill each other. We really never saw that this year. We really didn't, and I think it was because of that trip.
Now, well, obviously after that game, you guys jump right into the region play, the eight team slate. You guys start out with a few big wins right out of the gate in Region 7 6A. Heading in after those first few games, what was kind of your feeling for the team when you guys maybe were 3-0 in region?
Well, first of all, we got a little ahead of ourselves. We thought since we went out there and competed with the DC team that we were going to come back and just kind of run roughshod over our entire region. So North Atlanta definitely gave us a wake up call. They're a much improved team. Coach O'Sullivan did a great job with those guys this year. And, we didn't play very well that game, and it was a close game going into the fourth quarter. And I think that was a little bit of a wake-up call for our guys. And after that, we went on about a five-game streak where we played really, really well in all phases of the game, in offense, defense, and special teams. So, offense started clicking a little bit, and Zach was putting up ridiculous numbers. Defense was causing turnovers, and the kicking game was pretty darn good. So, and then there's some good teams in this region. I think our schedule was favorable in the for the fact of, I thought Centennial and Alpharetta were going to be the two stronger teams in the region, and it was good to get some games under our belt before playing them late in the year, and trying to work out some of those kinks in the kicking game and offense and defensively as well. So I think it worked out to our advantage to kind of get some of those games under our belt, and I don't want to call any of those teams warm-up games or anything like that, because there were some tough games early on too. But it was nice to, like I said, work some of those kinks out before we played some pretty darn good Centennial team, and then and Alpharetta as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And with that, you touched on that Centennial game. That was a really fun game to watch from my perspective. Really just one of those games that you enjoy sitting on the sidelines for. What was your kind of takeaway from that really close, really hard fought game?
I texted Coach Perry yesterday. I was sad to see him go because we've had two games that have gone down last play in 2 years. So I know Coach Perry's moving on to East Hall over closer to his home at Gainesville. So they've been two really fun games to be a part of, back and forth. Disappointed after that game, and I don't want to take anything away from Centennial because they did a lot of good things, but we didn't play all that well in certain areas of the game. So it was a good game to go against a good Centennial team, kind of going into the rest of the season, and I thought they were as good as any team in 6A, and I thought they would have advanced the third or fourth round if Max would have been playing. Mm-hmm. I firmly believe that. I mean, they had a good defense. They flew to the ball. The offensive line was big kids, and Max was as good as any quarterback in Georgia. So that was a fun game, and I'm glad we came out on top this year. And it prepared us for close games too. As a coach, I want to win by 40 every week, but we need a couple close games here and there to kind of prepare you for later on the season, because you're not going to win every game by 40 going to the playoffs in Georgia. So it was a great game to be part of, and the way we've coach and I approached this idea last year of the Veterans Memorial Trophy, and those guys at Johns Creek Veteran Association have taken that thing and run with it. I mean, those guys, they put everything into that game, came up with that trophy that looks like the Sears
National Championship.
Yeah, it looks like
trophy.
I mean that thing's huge. It's heavy. I mean, after lifting it up after the game, I almost dropped it on a couple kids. But for them to put that much into it, and we're bringing out World War II vets and getting on. We have to use a golf cart to get them out to midfield for the coin flip. I mean, that was pretty surreal stuff, and I know they appreciate it, and they look forward to it every year. And I'm already getting emails from those guys about the game next year, so they're fired up about it every year, and it's a fun atmosphere, and I'm glad we get to do it against Centennial, because I think it's always going to be a good game against those guys.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, after that Centennial win, you guys beat Alpharetta and then take down Dunwoody. You go 8-0 in region. You capture the title. Can you kind of describe, I guess, the feeling after you guys had won that 7-6A title?
I don't want to say relief, because that sounds like a negative word, but I thought we'd be pretty good this year. But I mean, Alabama's good every year, and they tend to slip up, against a Mississippi State or an Auburn or something like that every year. So you're always worried about a slip up here and there, and it was nice to go undefeated. I know they won it in 2016, but I think they shared it with Alpharetta and Centennial, I believe. Maybe it was Cambridge and Alpharetta. I can't remember, but I think it was a 3-way tie. So I didn't want to get into that where if Alpharetta would have beat us there, it would have been a 3-way tie with Alpharetta and Centennial and us for the region championship. So I didn't want to share, again, being greedy. So it was nice to go undefeated, and that's what the kids talked about all year, is winning that region, kind of taking that next step and setting ourselves up for a couple home games in the playoffs. And that's what we were looking forward to as well, making sure we had a couple home playoff games, and the best way to do that is win the region. So we talk about, this is going to be a goal every year is to win the region, and not just an every other year type of thing. And now that they got a taste of it, hopefully keep it going.
In capturing that region title, obviously it earns you the number 1 seed, but you get paired up with, I think, is easily maybe the toughest number 4 seed in the state in Class 6A in Harrison. You talked about earlier about the Centennial game kind of preparing you for those close games. You have a really close one with Harrison, come up a little bit short, but, can you kind of describe for our listeners, that game and maybe what you were, feeling afterward after all was said and done?
Well, going into it, I mean, as the season progressed, of course, you're watching scores and watching what's going on with the other region, especially that region over there, because we knew we were going to be paired up with them. And we kind of started preparing, trying to watch some film on Sequoia, because we kind of thought they were going to be the number 4 seed. And, Harrison ends up losing in overtime on a 2-point conversion to Creekview. That if they would have won, they would have been region champs. Mm-hmm. They don't get the Creekview gets a 2-point conversion, and Harrison goes from number 2 to number 4, and they were the number 4. So they're number 4 team in the region, the number 4 team in the state, and I don't know if that's ever happened before in Georgia. So, and I think there was one other game, but I think us and one other game was the only 2 games in Georgia for week 1 that were pairing 2 top 10 teams in round 1. So you'd like to get a easier game round 1, and we talked about, especially as a staff, getting that first playoff win in school history. So we still haven't gotten that. But they were a tough team to prepare for, and they had weapons all over the place. They were big and strong. So we knew it was going to be a battle going in. I thought we played pretty well the first half when we were going to the locker room up 20-10 and not feeling great, but feeling confident. The kids knew that they were pretty good too. Mm-hmm. And they're kids. They're 16, 17 years old, so you wonder what their mindset is. After going 8-0 in the region and playing pretty well, Okay, now we got a really good team, and how are we going to respond? And I thought we played a pretty good first half against a good team, and shut down some things that we wanted to. They did a ton of stuff on offense. I've never prepared for a team that did so much stuff on offense. I mean, they were in wing tee one series, next series they're in spread and trips, doubles, and then they'll go into double tights, 3-back, the old 1960s T formation and try to ram it down your throat, and then they'll come back and run single wing the next series. So it's like you didn't know what they're going to run, and we took away a lot of the stuff in the first half, and they came out second half and they're in shotgun double wing, and we didn't tackle very well second half, and then offensively we made some silly mistakes, and kicking game was not on par that night. So talking to some coaches today, and kind of the disappointing thing is Harrison was a good team, but I thought that I just wish we would have played a little bit better. Lose to a team that I think is clearly better than you. That happens, especially when you get in the playoffs. But losing because you just made silly mistakes, that's why I was like, it was tough to swallow for our kids and our coaches. And then Lanier goes on and beats Harrison and goes to the semis. And I think our kids thought they could play with Lanier and Coffee and some of those teams that were on down the line. So they weren't looking ahead, but they said they were surprised when they saw the bracket. They said, "Coach, we can make a run at this thing." I think in back of everybody's mind, we knew Lee County might be the inroad or the end game there, because they got it rolling down there. But I think our kids and our staff thought that we could compete with just about anybody. And I had several conversations throughout the year with some writers and some other coaches. I mean, besides Lee County in 6A, you take the number 2 team to 20, and I think it's pretty even. Mm-hmm. And that region that we were paired up with, Sequoia and Altoona and Harrison and Sequoia and those guys, I think we're a couple plays away from our region of went 0-4, but I think we're a couple plays away from going 3-1. Mm-hmm. If Centennial has Max, they win that game. Alfredo's one play away from beating Sequoia. We're one play away from beating Harrison. So as good as that region was, and they had their top 4 teams and the top 8 in the state. I think we get a lucky bounce here and there. We could have been 3-1 against that region. So I think unfortunately went 0-4, and our region probably won't get the respect it deserves next year as well. But we're close. Mm-hmm. So,
kind of looking back at as this season as a whole, obviously there's tons of moments, tons of things that I imagine stick out. But what kind of are some of those moments that you look back on this 2018 campaign as maybe defining moments, or those moments that are going to stick in your mind forever?
Going back to the first 2 games, if you count the scrimmage, where we put up some serious points, and then Fairfield we put up some points, and the defense played pretty well. But just kind of bringing the team together afterwards, and the kids looking around, you could just see on their faces like, well, we could be pretty good this year. So kind of seeing that light click on, and knowing that they put in the work in the summer and took their lumps last year, and they're like, and they come to me, throughout the day at school, and Coach, we're going to be pretty good, aren't we? And that was kind of cool for them to see, especially after a rough year the year before. Another moment I'll never forget, and not a lot of people know this, but walking off the field in D.C., I mean, our parents we had so many parents there. It was unbelievable how many parents made that trip. And we took a beat down on the scoreboard. And walking off the field, we had more parents in the stands than they did. And they gave us a standing ovation walking off the field. I mean, I shed a couple man tears on that on that one. I thought, wow, this is just great support, and this is what this program needs. Our parents to get behind us like this, and be proud of these kids for not just making this trip, but for going out there and competing. And so that was a pretty cool moment for me. Probably not a lot of people noticed that, and some of the kids were had their heads down dragging. They might not even notice, but it was pretty cool to see. Like a standing ovation for those guys walking off that field. seeing the kids celebrate after Centennial game, and I think they probably got a little bit out of hand throwing helmets and jerseys and towels and everything in the air like we won the Super Bowl. But seeing them run around, have fun, and experience that win, that was pretty cool as well. And then, kind of all coming together in the Alpharetta game and playing pretty well, and they beat us up pretty good at their place last year. So it was kind of nice, kind of clinching the region on their field, and that was a cold night, and just kind of experiencing that, and hugging it out with the kids, and pictures with the trophy, and pictures with my wife who was about to pop. That was pretty cool. Hosting that game against Harrison, they brought a pretty good crowd, and our students came out and supported us, and that was just a big game atmosphere, and wish the result was different, but just being in that atmosphere, it was nice. So it's been a couple years since I've been in a playoff game that mattered like that, and it's it's fun. So it's a fun atmosphere to just be in a win or go home type of game. So and to be on our home field in front of our fans, that was a cool moment.
Yeah, for sure. With that, Coach, where do you see the future of the Gladiators program?
Well, we're back to work. Like I said, we're offensive line. We got to get stronger. Don't know where all these big kids are that these other schools are getting, but they're not too many walking the streets or walking the halls of Johns Creek. So, but our kids work, and there's a lot of people when I got this job that said, North, you can't sustain success in North Fulton. Some coaches said win and get out. You know what I mean? And I don't want to get out. I'd like to win here and build something. And I told the 2017 team this, and the 2018, we're not just a good team. We want to be a good program. And our JV was 7-0. Our 8th grade numbers doubled, in 1 year. We had some youth programs that advanced to the Super Bowl in their divisions. So, the future's bright, and I think there's a lot of excitement right now around the program. We just got to build on it. Like I said, I think, if we started tomorrow, I think our defense would be okay. Got some major holes to fill on offense with a couple just phenomenal players that are moving on, especially at the quarterback position, which is pretty important. Mm-hmm. So, but we have a whole off season, and kids are already talking about spring ball and getting out there and getting some work in. And I'm also the head track coach, so I'll be dragging my guys out there, and our goal is to be the fastest team in Georgia. Tell the kids that all the time, because we're not going to be the biggest, but we could be the fastest. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to drag them out there, and we'll get to work on the track in the spring, and then going into spring ball, and we got to just talked to Lambert High School yesterday, and we're going to play Lambert in the spring game. Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to it. Still trying to wrap up our schedule for 2019. Obviously, we're going to Fairfield Central that first game, and return the trip from them. And then in talking to a few teams right now from a couple different states about somebody coming to us for that second game. So we're excited. We should have a pretty good schedule, and doing the all-region voting a couple weeks ago with the coaches. 2017, it was nice because most everybody's guys were seniors, and I was sitting there with sophomores, freshmen, and juniors. This year, we majority of our guys were seniors on that team. So, and there was a lot of underclassmen for the other teams that got some awards. So, obviously, we got to kind of rebuild and back to the drawing board, and but that's the fun part. So. Mm-hmm.
Finally, Coach, I know we've kind of talked about this a little bit before, but now that you have 2 seasons here in Georgia under your belt, you highlight maybe some of the differences from coaching in Florida and coaching here in Georgia.
Well, you said it right there. It's coaching, and just the resources that the towns, the communities, the schools, the counties put into into Florida, it's sad, and you see people write about it all the time. And people started talking about the other day when Coach Darlington, who was at Valdosta, then he was at Apopka, won a couple state championships, and now he's off to Alabama. So some people got to talking about. I mean, you can't keep good coaches down there. You can't pay them, and it's hard to get them in the schools, and it's really a shame that the kids, experience that disservice, I guess you could say. They just don't get coached up, and they're freaks. Those Florida kids are freaks. I mean, they could just. I said it a couple weeks ago. I mean, they could do everything wrong on a play and just still make the play because they're so dang fast and strong and tough. Mm-hmm. And it's fun to coach kids like that. But coaching is the big thing up here, and I learned that real quick. Stuff you see on film that I used to, spend hours and hours and hours breaking down film and stuff I used to get away with in Florida and finding holes in people's deep offenses and special teams. We get in the first couple games in Georgia, and I'm like, all right, thinking to myself, crap, they found that too. So they corrected that mistake, and all the stuff you think you can kind of get away with, and people find your weaknesses and they fix their own. And there's just a bevy of just talented staffs around here. And another thing would be quarterback play. I think Georgia's it's got to be. Maybe California is the only other state I can think of that has just the number of just great quarterbacks. I'm not talking just good, solid. I mean, almost everybody has a good, solid quarterback, but there's some great quarterbacks. I mean, look at our region the last couple of years. I mean, the Northview kid was, just kind of came out of nowhere. He was phenomenal. Alfred's always got a good quarterback in their system. Max at Centennial, and they had the kid before him that was I can't remember his name, but he was a pretty good player. North Atlanta kid could sling it. So I mean, they're just in the Hooch kid from 2 years ago was phenomenal. So just in our region alone, there's half the teams in our region have just scholarship type quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. So I think that makes a big difference. In Florida, you could really just kind of do what you want and kind of load up the box and stop somebody that's got some talented running backs because most of the time there wasn't a good quarterback. They just had a good athlete back there and mm-hmm. Let them run around and try to make plays. But I think that's a big difference that Georgia has. And back to the resources, just what they put into off-season training. The parents know the deal up here. They're a little bit more involved and aware of what the kids need and getting these kids to practice in the middle of 6, 7 a.m. in June and getting the 7-on-7s and a little bit more parent involvement. Mm-hmm. And that's another unfortunate thing about Florida. A lot of single parent homes and sometimes you don't get a lot of people in the stands and it blew my mind coming from Indiana. Small town where everybody was at the game on Friday night, even though we weren't a football powerhouse by any means, but everybody was there. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget the first game at Coral Springs High School down in Florida when I turned around and there's maybe 40 people in the stands and, 15, 20 more students and you got maybe 10 sets of parents. And I'm like, what in the world is going on here? They're like, everyone's like, Coach, what? I said, where's the parents? They're like, oh, they don't come to the games. I said, it just blew my mind that there's parents out there that wouldn't want to see their kid, whether it's, I don't care if gymnastics, soccer, or lacrosse, or mm-hmm. football, but it's just, so it's nice to see. And we didn't sell out our stadium, but even that first game last year when we hosted Lassiter, just turn around looking up the stands, it was just awesome to see. I mean, every parent was up there. Mm-hmm. Student section was great. And it's pretty cool to see the community rally around the football team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Coach, I think that's about all I had. Unless, like I said, there was something that you wanted to add or something I may have missed.
No, not that I can think of. So,
all right. Well, again, Coach, thank you so much for joining us today. I do appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for having me. So, always good talking to you, Joe.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for listening to Overtime with Joe Parker. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the show, and follow all of Appen Media's sports coverage at northfulton.com.